Hey everybody, good evening. I'm back for one last supplemental video, actually to my last video I did earlier today. This one here, which is titled "The Economic Collapse: Ether and V-Ciphers, Super Bowl Occultism Decoded, Gematria and Earth Control Grid." This is on my channel as well. You can go watch this, but this is actually the gematria table we were referencing, and we were finding all these parallels with the T and the G, the inverse of each other, of course, with the 22 and the 77. And what we actually ended up decoding was not them passing on to the Super Bowl, but it turns out them getting eliminated. I missed a couple things in the decode, and I'm going to go over that right now that we do have the participants in the Super Bowl 54, the San Francisco 49ers and Kansas City Chiefs. There are some absolute parallels that I'm going to walk through in terms of the further ritual that's happening here, and as it relates to Donald Trump, as we see, of course, still in the gematria decode down here, 88, 45. I think if you type in Donald Trump, or the Donald, that Donald was what I wanted to type in for the 50. Yeah, there it goes. Sorry, they're separated, but these two values down here, as we did with Aaron Rodgers and Ryan Tannehill, I also did the Patrick Mahomes and Richard Sherman, and you can see there's a little bit of a Joe Montana deal that I'm connecting here as well. This all has to do with, of course, the new participants of the Super Bowl, Mahomes being the quarterback of the Chiefs, and Richard Sherman, because he was such a prominent player of the Seahawks and was involved in a big ordeal with a number 15 player on the San Francisco 49ers team the year that the Seattle Seahawks advanced to win Super Bowl 43. You see 43 here. You also saw 43 down here. So 43 is again in play. There was a connection between Richard Sherman and that event. So I put him in here as well. I haven't even put Jimmy Garoppolo in there, but I'm just going to make this actually a short and sweet video because I'm not, again, looking to go through and do too deep, in-depth decodes. But you will also see with Donald and Chiefs, 50, 50, 112, 112, 31, 31. There's an absolute correlation between Chiefs and the Donald, the Don. What is that? Well, he is the commander-in-chief, is he not? And what we've talked about on this channel, of course, is his connection to his uncle and the Tesla technology. Okay? So what we're gonna actually do is complete what I was talking about earlier. We now know that the 28 score for the Packers and the Titans the previous week, matching up, that was them meeting their demise. And I actually missed this earlier in the day, as in one of the Boeing articles on Zero Hedge. This actually would have given me a clue maybe to who might have persisted to win, and I could make a more accurate prediction. But like I said in the video earlier today, I wasn't about to do that. I hadn't spent enough time on it, so I'm just decoding after the fact what I see. And deeper into this, of course, this Boeing supplier cuts 2,800 jobs. Of course, that's numerologically the value 28. Get my highlighter up here. If it will. The video's creeping along here, but yeah, here we go. Toggle. SA 28. And the interesting about this is it happened in Wichita, Kansas, right next to Kansas City, right? So this is clearly connected to the whole ordeal. And then I also remember my dad works at Boeing, and he was just telling me earlier this week the Boeing plant actually shut down because of a snowstorm for the first time ever in his 41 years there on January 14th, so 5 days ago from this event. So 5-day separation from the Kansas City win to the shutdown of the Boeing plant as well. So there's more 5 V steganography. Now, what we're seeing with the final scores here, we see a couple things as well. Here's the the score of the Kansas City Chiefs. The 35, of course, ties directly into the F-35 jets that we were looking at with the 52 jet elephant walk exercise. And I guess I actually want to put elephant walk in here. See what elephant walk. And elephant walk has the 47 in there as well. I don't see anything other than, I mean, Richard's got the 47. Of course, this is more than anything the Freemason compass degrees. Very, 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 very sacred symbol for the Freemason, in terms of Freemasonry. So that's the connection we see here, of course, with the 35 being the final score. And something interesting else happened in this game. I actually took screenshots on my phone. I'm going to show on camera here throughout the course of the day to show some various events. So first and foremost, this was actually the score at the end of the first half. I actually got screen capture a little bit later, but that was still the score at the end of the first half, 17-21. So 17 was still in play, Ryan Tannehill 17, and with the Titans. But what ends up happening is they get thwarted. So the 17 gets thwarted, and this is what I was presupposing in the last couple of videos: is if we're thwarting the 17, then this is a good omen, I guess we can call it, because it means that we're dealing away with the artificial God structure. We're dealing away with whatever the Q movement was trying to control behind the scenes, right? So that was the first curiosity. The second one, oh, and then the other one too, at the bottom there, this was the other thing. The 1771 reference, if you can read there at the bottom of the screen, it actually says that the Titans touchdown, there was a Titans touchdown to a number 71 offensive lineman. So lo and behold, there was like a flip of the script type of a deal. And this is how the factions, the wizards and warlocks at the top of all this, kind of battle it out in the occult, in plain sight, to wrangle for control in their chess match of the attention markets of the population. So what this might tell me is that the 1771 was such an odd play with an offensive lineman catching it would be a flip of the script. And something where there's propensity for the Titans maybe even to have won, this gets turned around because one of the factions, representing the Chiefs, the commander-in-chief, Donald, as they're completely matched up with each other, the Chiefs and Donald, you start to see, of course, that we have something going on here that doesn't, well, of course, with all things steganography and gematria and symbolism, does not meet the eye. More than meets the eye, I should say. So here's the other score of the final score. The Packers scored 20, the 49ers scored 37. Of course, the 20 is in play all over with the Titans, Super Bowl LIV. This is, of course, I should have also noticed the F22. Anybody with the 22 ritual happening, which was both the Titans and the Packers, were probably going to be replaced or overcome in the Super Bowl or on the en route to the Super Bowl, because the F22 has been replaced. It got 187'd right above there. That's the 180, the killing number for the for the call in for the police code. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. But anyhow, this is. I think there were some 20 rituals. Yeah, the Titans scored 20, so they were doomed, right there. The Saints scored 20. They were doomed, as it relates to these rituals. The Texans scored 22. They were doomed. So the Packers, and then this 28-28, as it relates to the KC factory closure, also indicates they were doomed. How doomed can you be when it's a script, right? But I digress. Anyway, there's the 20, and then the 24 that came in, of course, with the Seattle Seahawks paradigm, lost as well earlier in the playoff rounds. Also, the Seattle connection with the Seahawks. The other thing I see, of course, with the Titans losing, this is their logo, this flaming letter T. It's oddly indicative of the same letter T that the company Tesla uses. And this makes me very happy because anybody who's seen this channel has heard me go on a rant probably more than a couple times that the bastardized company that is Tesla, if this will actually come back, is not my favorite form of Tesla. This is my Tesla. Thank you very much. And the fact that we don't use any of his paradigm with this company that's why I call it bastardization. It's a sham. And if I'm reading this correctly, both the G and the T lost today. Again, no surprises if we're looking at it in the right phasing. The 20 and the 20, the Titans, the 20s we're going to lose. The 22s and the 20s we're going to lose. They got thwarted, and because of this, what we can actually surmise is that, in my opinion, what I'm seeing here is the company Tesla is about to go down with this Boeing economic collapse, Boeing-led maybe economic collapse. These guys are completely government subsidized. They don't have sound money policies attached to any of their supply chain. There is no supply and demand. I'm going to read an excerpt actually from the book I mentioned yesterday too, the Bitcoin Standard, at the end of this stream, to show really how this all ties into the economic markets, right? Because further than the Donald Trump riddle, we also have the 49ers, SF, and they represent, with the Gematria code, the number 25, just like Richard Sherman, the number 7. I don't see anything with the 29 and the 11 being in play with this particular one, but anybody who knows what a 49er is relates to the gold rush, the gold standard. Gold. Oh, there's a 20 with gold. Gold rush. There's another 41. Gold standard. Typing these in as we go. Okay. Some interesting things pop up when we relate San Francisco to the gold standard and the coming economic collapse. I think the gold standard might be doomed to get implemented. There's a 20 there. Of course, 119, well, gold right now may be nixed. The killing number is on gold with 20. So those are both in play. Also, as you see, we've got a lot of 112s as they relate, the gold rush, down here with the Chiefs. So 112 is a very hefty number for tying Donald Trump, the Chiefs, and the gold rush together, right? And so with gold being number 20, the killing number, but reinstituting the gold standard in some way with this 119 as it relates to the 119 market collapse on January 7th that we were talking about in my last video of Boeing, the day that Boeing was speculated to be bid on by Warren Buffett for the tune of $5 billion, but was all just speculation, as we looked at right here in this article, of course. You're starting to see the tapestry that's painted as we lead up to these elections, okay? So what we have right now is Donald, the commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, right? And Donald Trump here is the 45th president of the United States, and 45 is, of course, the inverse of 54, Super Bowl 54, if we're going back here. And I might just take a second to tie all of these Super Bowls together, by the way, that we had talked about in the past. We've got the Super Bowl from the New England Patriots and the Philadelphia Eagles from 2 years ago, which is all about Glass-Steagall. Remember, the Steagles played in the 1943 season. There's that 43 again, with which we get with Sherman, which we get with LIV, the Roman numerals, and Titans. So we understand that the 43 is in play. The Eagles lost this year. 43 wasn't in play for winning this year, apparently. But we also know that it's tied to the U.S. Bank Stadium that year that was played in, the banking system, U.S. Bank Stadium, the banking system tied to Glass-Steagall in a stadium made out of glass. And does this have anything to do, of course, with this with all the 52s and 25s. You see the 52s and the 25s all throughout the gematria we've been doing today. But remember, what's also important about this Super Bowl is it's actually the 50th Super Bowl of the modern era. Okay, and what's interesting about that is that 50 years ago, the Chiefs played in Super Bowl IV against the Minnesota Vikings and beat them. And so this is actually, guys, this is actually where starts to get interesting, because Warren Moon comes into play again, because he again played for the Vikings, he played for the Kansas City Chiefs, the Houston Oilers, which are the Titans of today, and the Seahawks. But before we even get to this, because the moon is the important piece that is in play, as we've talked about on this channel constantly with the eighth sphere, we have these two inextricably tied together because of Super Bowl, and then I brought up Super Bowl 50, which was at, lo and behold, Levi Stadium. Since this is the 50th modern day Super Bowl, I decided to look into if I could find anything on the actual Super Bowl 50. And coincidentally, not coincidentally, most likely, because of the occult nature of this, that Super Bowl was held in Levi Stadium, Santa Clara, California, the home of the San Francisco 49ers where they just won today. So you guys can see how they kind of weave all these Super Bowls even together into a tapestry of a script, and they kind of cast a spell over a course of 50 years, and they reference other things. But the thing I wanted to point out was this is the last time the Kansas City Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. I think there's something tied to this 50 because of the fact that they're playing against the 49ers. I think if I'm going to predict, here's what I'm seeing is the Chiefs, the commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, is going to win the election this year. This is also an election ritual. The commander-in-chief tying up these two numbers, Donald, with the Chiefs. You get what I think is the preamble for the red wave. Both teams are red in livery color or uniform. The KC Chiefs are red. The 49ers are red and gold. But the red, I think they call them in the last election the red wave. Maybe we should put red wave up there. Let's see what comes up. Look at that, another 3378. So Patrick Mahomes, this is really funny because everything matches up with Patrick, red wave and Patrick. So Patrick being the quarterback of the Chiefs, red wave probably going to indicate the decimation of the Democrats basically in the election. What does Republican equal out to? Well, there's a 47 with Republican too. But anyway, Republican doesn't match up with too many values that I see. But the red wave and the Patrick connection for Patrick Mahomes is really interesting. So moving on from that, we are starting to see maybe there's this ritual with the election and the election day. I don't even know. Election day 2020, Tuesday, November 3rd. Time between dates. We're going to do the Super Bowl between the election live, actually, just right here. So 2/2/20, 20 and 11/3/2020. 275 days, or 276 if you include the end day. Do I see a 276 in here? I don't see it. So that'll take some more time to decode. There's something to that, I'm sure. With the length between the Super Bowl and the presidential election, two huge events. There's probably a correlation with them of some sort. But moving on from what I also see between the connection of these two teams, of course, is Joe Montana, who, when he left the 49ers in when did he leave the 49ers? In 1993, he was traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. He played his last two seasons, and he led him to the championship game, but lost. So, anyway, that's kind of as much as I probably need to dive into Joe Montana right here, because we're just kind of talking gematria. And Joe Montana's up here Of course, you've got 54. This is the Super Bowl 54. He was a part of both teams. So there's that ritual in play. There's the 666, 36, gematria. So this is a really key seminal thing to look into, in addition to, the Warren Moon component. Because the Warren Moon component, like I said, we got this puzzle piece. We just interpreted it wrong on the earlier video I did today. Anyhow, moving on. What else? The other thing, because of the moon is tied in. The reason why the moon is tied in was because 50 years ago this year, the moon landing happened. And the moon landing happened the same year that the Chiefs won the last Super Bowl. The moon landing happened as an occlusion of whatever the heck we were doing up in space, like what I was talking about earlier today with the space in the Star Wars program. So what I am seeing here, to decode this all out, is if the Chiefs and the Commander-in-Chief have control of the Space Force, and Donald Trump is inextricably tied with Tesla, and the fake Tesla is now burning to the ground with this ritual, and the big G, the Freemasons, are also burning to the ground, we might have a paradigm shift coming, and that's what this ritual for the Super Bowl might be telling us. I have a good feeling that there may be faction wars happening in the favor of humanity right now. The Veritasium stuff I showed with that video a couple days ago is also pertinent to this. All financial collapse related, and all related back to this moment with the Glass-Steagall and the 33 that got scored there, the Super Bowl 50, Super Bowl 4, and even Super Bowl 1, because Kansas City played against the Packers in Super Bowl 1. The Packers won with a score of 35, just like our F-35 jets. And Bart Starr was number 15 in this game. Patrick Mahomes is number 15. Remember, it was also played on January 15th in 1967. So here we have some more clues to, I think, who we might have as the crowned Super Bowl winner, in fact. If I'm reading between the lines, if I'm going to actually go bet on a team, between what I've researched so far, the Kansas City Chiefs look like, because they're so tied to Donald Trump and the election, Space Force, and overcoming the old paradigm. Seahawks represent a bad space paradigm. The Packers represent the Freemasonry paradigm. The Titans represent the Nephilim paradigm. And actually, I think, as it relates to another thing, that the Titans represent the Giants. And I think it could represent, just as the economy is collapsing, I'll maybe go over a video of these two books, The Giants on Record, America's Hidden History, Secrets, and the Mounds, and the Smithsonian Files, and The Ancient Giants Who Ruled America, The Missing Skeletons, and Great Smithsonian Cover-Up. Both related to the Smithsonian cover-up. And in fact, the Smithsonian maybe the Smithsonian is related to this in some way. I didn't type that one in either. Smithsonian. I don't see anything with us. How about Smithsonian Institute? Nope, don't see anything. So I don't see anything specific with the Smithsonian, but I do see the remembering the Titans thing that we were talking about earlier. This whole deal, as maybe this is the paradigm we're actually going to get to remember them. We'll potentially have some historical information to decode that's accurate in that regard sometime soon, which also might be the flaming paradigm. So we have all these things coalescing. This is the ritual starting to make sense. The other thing that I would have seen entirely if we would have caught it earlier was the connection that the 49ers have to the countdown of Omer. So the 33, like we said this year, April 9th, 4/9 is when it starts on the 49-day countdown. And of course, of consequence, like we were talking about in the earlier symbology of the G equaling 33 and the life-death rebirth, or not the rebirth, but the death cycle and the cycle starting over and ending anew. 33 days in being the 11/5/511 reference. I actually would have, I totally missed this. The 49s are all over this, the 49ers, and I should have seen that tied in better to the space paradigm and the Ronald Reagan Star Wars program stuff that was all related here. But I digress. I did not do that, and so I was only looking at what I could look out, and honestly just trying to get the video out before the day. So, kind of in summation, that's what we've got. Trump is still in play here. These 25 the Stiegels and the bad policy making that is keeping the financial system together. I think if the commander in chief wins the election, the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, this could be an omen that that's exactly what the factions are planning for. And of course, the gold standard in some capacity is meant to be instituted, but we also have the Bitcoin and the Bitcoin standard. And I have this in there very purposefully because of the Bitcoin standard. I'm being a little bit clever with that. Again, you've got 45 for Donald Trump's 45th president of the United States. I think it was president. Yeah, president equals 52 and 47 as well. But when we have Donald Trump, I can't remember what the term I wanted to put in that also had some connotation here, but the Bitcoin standard, 6336, of course, being the 666, the 45, the 72, as it relates down to money, 27, 63. Bitcoin is a very occult instrument. Satoshi Nakamoto is somebody who Satoshi Nakamoto. I don't even know if I spell his Nakamoto. I forgot how do you spell maybe just Satoshi will suffice for now. But I don't see anything with him either. But the Bitcoin standard, Bitcoin, and the gold standard and gold are what we're actually looking into usurping. So the other thing that is hilarious about this is kind of where we've gotten in this paradigm. I'm going to read an excerpt from the book, and this is what I suspect this battle is all about. And this will be this in summation of my kind of supplement here to my earlier video of what I saw. But this will all make sense as to what's happening behind the scenes and why it actually is incredibly important. If you go watch my Veritasium video I did, why a central banking system cannot make a currency, okay? And that's what we find ourselves in. Why the Divi coin is kind of, in my opinion, a sham and all that stuff. And this is page 115 of the Bitcoin standard. As the central bank manages the money supply and interest rate, there will inevitably be a discrepancy between savings and loanable funds. Central banks are generally trying to spur economic growth and investment and to increase consumption, so they need to increase the money supply and lower the interest rate, resulting in larger quantities loanable funds and of loanable funds than savings. At these artificially low interest rates, businesses take on more debt to start projects than savers put aside to finance these investments. In other words, the value of consumption deferred is less than the value of the capital borrowed. Without even consumption deferred, there will not be enough capital, land, and labor resources diverted away from consumption goods toward higher order capital goods at the earliest stages of production. There's no free lunch, and after all, if consumers save less, there will have to be less capital available for the investors. Creating new pieces of paper and digital entries to paper over the deficiency in the savings does not magically increase society's physical capital stock. It only devalues the existing money supply and doctors' prices. So all this is saying is what's happening is there's manipulation of sound money in the system, and it's already happened with gold. But what this book, of course, is building toward is the case for the Bitcoin standard, that this disparity in inflation and reasons for it, because of the resultant nature of the government needing to increase consumption, we need to get away from something and institute something more stable. And of course, Divi is never going to be able to do that. It can't be a true currency. I continue, right? And this actually, as we're going through this, lays out brilliantly what started on September 11th with the repo markets, like what the consequences of it are. In other words, the shortage of capital, actually, that we have now because of the repo market, so this is kind of a great segue, is not immediately apparent because banks and the central bank can use enough money for the borrowers. That is, after all, the main perk of using unsound money. In an economy with sound money, such manipulations of the price of capital would be impossible. As soon as the interest rate is set artificially low, The shortage in savings at banks is reflected in reduced capital available for borrowers, leading to a rise in the interest rate, which reduces demand for loans and raises the supply of savings until the two match. So this is what cannot happen under the repo, unfortunately. The first part of this is true. The shortage of the money capital isn't immediately apparent to us, but because the markets are manipulated, we are not going to get the match of demand for loans and the supply for savings ever under this system. It has nothing but catastrophe in store for it near the end of it, you know? Anyway, I continue to wrap this thing up, and as it relates basically back to the malinvestments of these companies, right? The excess money backed by no actual deferred consumption initially makes more producers borrow, operating under the delusion that the money will allow them to buy all the capital goods necessary for their production process. Does this sound familiar? Tesla, well, if the logo comes back. They keep hiding from me. This friggin' Tesla logo. There he is. As more and more producers are bidding for fewer capital goods and resources than they had expected there to be, the natural outcome is a rise in the price of capital goods during the production process. This is the point at which the manipulation is exposed, leading to simultaneous collapse of several capital investments which suddenly become unprofitable at the new capital good prices. These projects are what Mises terms as malinvestments, investments that would not have been undertaken without distortions in the capital market, and whose completion is not sorry, I have a post-it note under here. It's not possible once the misallocations are exposed. And this is what we're going to find, I think, with Tesla, because of all the rare earth and minerals that have been suppressed very, very low. Silver in particular for the entire electronics market. But, you know, all the lithium batteries at Tesla, they have other metals and things they have to buy from, have been able to benefit from all of this artificially low money with injections of trillions of dollars just to keep the market going on a daily basis. So there's your basic summation as to what's going on. And another book to consider when you're actually thinking about cycles and astrology, we've talked a lot about in the Veritasium video too. This one is a very, very important one by Edward Dewey and Edward Dakin. I've referenced it before. It goes by the rhythms of the universe and why the ether, the V steganography of this actually matters, because you cannot avert and machine control nature. And this is what the central bankers are trying to do, is hijack these natural patterns of astrology for their own spell casting, and it doesn't work very well after a time. And a correction is going to follow, and I think that's actually what we have to see, and it's kind of apparent all over the preamble to this Super Bowl and all of the events leading up. So, guys, thanks a lot. That does it for now. Have an awesome week. I'm going to go back, nose to the grindstone, and with my other stuff I got going on, and I'll see you when I see you.